To access the math intervention test, the first thing we need to do is go to the Start menu, go to the DSC curriculum folder, and choose the number 1 folder, Curriculum. Inside here there is a WMS folder. Double click on the WMS folder and copy the math intervention folder. This has the 4 tests that we are going to administer to our students. Next, you'll want to go to your S drive. So I'll click on my All Students S drive. And here, we want to place the test in the read-only folder. This is the folder that our students can access. So then I will go to my Donley folder. If you don't have your own folder, you may want to have your tech give you a folder. And I will paste the math intervention file in that folder. Now my students can access the 4 tests that I have in here. Now we are going to pull our student data off of Infinite Campus. So what you're going to want to do is choose the section that you want. If you have multiple sections, you're going to have to do this a couple times. So right now I'm going to choose my hour 1. Next thing you need to make sure is that you have one assignment that is not graded for this section. So right here I have an assignment called Math, and it's not graded yet. So then I can go to Reports, and I want to choose the Gradebook Export. You'll be brought to a page like this. Under File Format, choose the drop down and select Tab Delimited. Make sure all the students that you want are selected, and then finally choose that one assignment that doesn't have a grade. Click on Generate Report, and then click Save. I almost always store stuff to my desktop since it's easier to find, so I'll call this Hour 1, and then I save it. And now I have pulled my student information off of Infinite Campus. The next thing we're going to do is import our student data into an Excel spreadsheet so it can be read by ExamView. I am going to be using Excel 2007 here. So I'm going to select the Data tab, and I'm going to select From Text. We're going to pull data from text. You got to find where did you store your text file that you brought from Infinite Campus. I put mine on my desktop, called it Hour 1, and I say Import. Next I'll click Next. Uncheck the Tab button, check the Space button. Next, uncheck the Treat Consecutive Delimiters button, and then under Text Qualifiers, select None. Now click Finish. From here you can click OK, and here in row 1 you're going to see your assignment, so I called it Math. 2 tells you how many points it's worth is 5, and then below that will be all your students, their last name, first name, and then their student ID. What we need to do is double click on 1 and drag it down to 2 so that way it's all highlighted. Then right click and say Delete. We don't need those 2 rows. Now all we have is our student information. From here, the next thing we want to do is get rid of all the quotes, the pound sign, and the commas. So we're going to go to the Home tab, click on Find, select, and choose Replace. So we're going to replace all these different things. So let's start with the quotes. I'm going to replace it with nothing. So I select Replace All, and it tells me 8 items have been replaced. Now you can see there's no quotes here. So then the next thing I'm going to replace are the commas. And so I click Replace All. And now, as you can see, all my commas are gone. And then finally, the next thing, or the last thing I have left to do is the pound sign. And I select Replace All. And now you can see I have no commas, quotes, or pound signs. So then I can say Close. And now I go to the File menu, click Save As. And then from here, I need to choose to save this as a Text Tab Delimited. So you choose Text Tab Delimited, and then save it as whatever name you want. So I will call it at Hour 1. But I'm going to say it's my finished file that I need. And once again, I will save it to my desktop. When you get this pop-up, just click OK and say yes. And now you have imported your students into Excel. Now we are going to import our student data into our ExamView Test Manager. To get here, you're going to go Start Menu, Programs, and ExamView. Then you're going to find this green and blue icon that says ExamView Test Manager. Click on that, and you will be brought to a page that looks like this. Every time you have a class, you are going to have to start a new class. So this is my first one. I'll click Start New Class and give it a class name. So I'm going to say Hour 1. Class ID, period, section, and passwords are all optional. A password basically says nobody can get into your grades without typing whatever password you give. So if you want to do that, you can. Fill out the information below and then say OK. So here's where your student data is going to go, and right here is where their test scores will be filled in. So for right now, let's bring in our student information. So you're going to click on File, drop down to Import, and select Class Roster from Text. Now the file I just made was Hour 1 Finished. So I'll click on Hour 1 Finished and say Open. Click OK. Make sure that separate fields for first and last name is selected, which is the top item, and say Next. Now put your student name into place. So Ali is his last name, Muhammad is his first name, and 1114 is his student ID, and then click Next. Finish. And when you get the pop-up of do you want to save this import definition profile, say no. And here you can see all your student information. Last thing we need to do is click Save and save this file. For right now, I'm going to save it to my desktop. Some of you may want to just save it to your U drive, so that way you can access it from any computer in the district. And now you have your one class set up. To set up another class, you will click this New Class option and you can set up your next class. Now the next thing we're going to look at is bringing test information into ExamView Test Manager. So what you want to do is click on the button with the pencil and the plus sign up above. Now you'll plug in your test name, so I'll call this Test 1. Assignment ID and everything else is optional. Then step 2 says how will the test be administered? Select the second option that says online test delivered over local area network. Click Next. Now the next spot, we need to find our tests. So I'm going to click this folder next to the C ExamView tests. And I know that I stored my tests on the S drive, read only, because that's where my students can access them. So I'll go to the S drive and click the plus sign. Go down until I see read only, click the plus sign. I put the folder in my name, so I'll click the plus sign next to my name and find Math Interventions. So right there I'll click on it and say select. Now you can see there are the 4 tests I did. The one that I'm looking to do right now is Test 1. Down below that you have 2 options. Allow students to take the test multiple times. This means the students can keep taking it over and over again until they get a score they like. Or you can allow students to complete the test over multiple sessions. Meaning if a student doesn't finish it on the day of the test, they could take it on another day and continue finishing what they had left over. Click Next when you make your choice. Step 4 says you can type in a password. If you want to add a password so your students can't take all the tests at once, you can definitely add a password in. So I'll make my password math. Step 5, I usually leave this. Students may access this at any time. If you're worried about them going trying to take it early or something, you can change the dates when you want to allow them to take it. Click Next. Next says allow students an unlimited amount of time. I always give my students an unlimited amount of time. And then step 7 says, do you want to display the questions in the same order for all students, or do you want to scramble them? I always want them scrambled since the students are sitting next to each other. And then I click Next. Now, I never want my students to see the responses as they answer them, so I always check Do Not Allow Students to check the responses. Then also uncheck for incorrect responses, display the feedback information. In step 9, I always let my students know what their score was after taking the test, but I don't want them to know what they got wrong, so I choose Show Only Score Percentage. Then I select Next. And then Finish. And here you can see I have Test 1. If you want to add Test 2, then I can just click on the plus sign again, type in Test 2, fill in the information, so check LAN, click Next, and then since I've already added Test 1, it's going to know where Test 2 is. So I click on that and I can fill out the rest. For the sake of time, I am going to stop right there though. Now that we have our test information set up in ExamView Test Manager, let's see what it would look like for a student to take a test. So our students would go to the Start menu, Programs, and then they would go to ExamView and click on ExamView Player. When they do this, they're going to get a page that looks like this. So they'll type in their name. So if I'm Muhammad Ali, I can type in Ali. And then student ID would be 1114. Click on Next. Now, students can't find the test. So what they need to do is search for it. So they'll click on the little folder down below. And they're going to have to find the S drive where you stored your files. So click the plus sign next to My Computer. Click the plus sign next to the S drive. Click the plus sign next to the Read Only. Click the plus sign next to My Name since that's where I stored mine. And then they will need to click on Math Interventions and click Select. Now, even though there's 4 tests in there, the only one they can see is Test 1 because that's the only test that we have set up in our ExamView Test Manager. So then they can click on that. Since I put a password in, they have to know that it's math. And here, ExamView knows just by the student ID that it's Muhammad Ali. Then click Start, and now you can see the test setup. Students have 3 ways of answering options. They can either click on the answer over in this screen, so if they think it's A, they could click A there. If they think it's C, they could click C here. Or if they thought it was B, they could just click B on the keyboard. Now, these buttons right here, this button takes you to the next question. So you could see I was on question 1. By clicking on it, it takes me to question 2. This button right here jumps you all the way to the end. And this button right here would jump you all the way to the beginning. So let's say a student accidentally does that, and they go and answer this question. And then they go, oh, I can't click anymore. Maybe I'm done. Well, right above there, it says there are 28 unanswered questions. What that should tell a student is they went too far. Also, they can check how many missing questions they have by clicking on this Go To button. Anything that has a red dot next to it means it is a question that hasn't been answered. So they can go back to question 2 and click OK, and then they can continue answering questions. So I'll go through and click a couple just so we can see how it works. Alright, and now when a student is finished, they click End, and 2 options are going to pop up. The default option is save your answers and complete the test at a later time. So this is going to be useful for those students that didn't get done that day. Or when a student is actually done, they need to check the End the test and submit your answers for scoring. When they've done that, then they can press OK. And the test will let them know right away what they got for a percentage. So here you can see I got 3 1/3%. And then it'll ask, would you like to take another test? No. And now they are done testing. Now, if you take the time to set up all your tests right away at the beginning, the last part is the easiest part of them all. Here I have test 1. Make sure the test that you want to get the grades for is selected. So test 1 is selected, yellow. And all you have to do is click on this little screen right next to the world where it says get results from LAN test. So I'll click on that. Since only one student took the test, which was Muhammad Ali, it only was able to retrieve one test. So click OK. Now, the nice part about ExamView is not only does it let you know how many the student got correct, but if you click on that student, it will tell you what the student had for responses. Now, the one thing you'll notice is I answered 1 through 5, and yet 1 through 5 it shows are not answered. Remember, we chose the option that said scramble the questions, so every student is going to have different questions as their 1 through 5. Now here you can see this question, I answered C, the correct answer was A. When a student has a correct answer, they will have a 1 in this field. So here you can see D, D. Also, if a student were to make a mistake and you do want to give them, or you made a mistake on a test and you want to be able to give students the correct points, so let's say number 19, in reality they did get it correct, all you have to do is click on the 0, type in a 1, and then say done, and now it actually upped his score to 2. So that's another way you can edit their results. And that is how you get your student scores from a LandView test.